So let's just talk about like relationships in general for a minute. Imagining that I'm, a college freshman. I've just shown up in the dorm. I'm moving in. I have a roommate. I'm meeting new friends. Like, what should I be telling these people? Like, how am I sharing this? Like, what do I need to make sure these people know when they meet me without becoming like the diabetic dude?
That's a great question. I think it really depends where you're coming from as the person living with diabetes and how open you are. But I think the bottom line is communication. And I think I would be surprised if 1 out of 100 people, more than 1 out of 100 would say, I don't want to hear about it. They're going to be interested. And I think the bottom line is you want them to know what you think is important. And I think treating a low blood sugar, glucagon kit is probably the most important. And as time goes on, if they're interested, you can teach them more about diabetes in general.
I would just add on that you could say, it's like, all these things, look, I got it. But when my blood sugar is low, here's some things that I could use, like your help with. And specifically, I think glucagon is one that you should let everybody know where it is, how to use it, get familiar with it, because that's the one thing that's designed for you yourself not to use that you could actually need their help with.
So when it comes to relationships, there's a lot of types of relationships, right? We have like family, siblings, friends, roommates, coworkers. How do we determine the type of support that we need from them? How do we ask for that support? And how do we create like healthy boundaries around that?
What people need from or their support is different for every person, and it also evolves over time. So I have a quick story to kind of illustrate this. So I was at a conference quite a while ago. There was a woman with type 1 diabetes on stage talking about how a weekend every month her husband would take over her diabetes control, do all of her injections, count all of her carbs, and everybody in the audience said, "Oh, that's so sweet." And I was thinking, that would be my worst nightmare, to give up that control. So it's just a point of like, there's a whole spectrum of what people want and what they don't want, and it's very person specific. So my advice when it comes to this, whether it's a spouse, a significant other, a family member, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's setting up a time to actually have a conversation about it that's not a code red kind of situation, because that's when these things usually come up. Mom, you're always on me about this, and you're already at like a 9, versus when diabetes isn't like a problem right now, but let's just talk about some ways that you actually could help me. When I'm low, I actually would appreciate if you get me some juice, or I tell you this. Otherwise, I would appreciate if you didn't comment on X, Y, or Z. And because think of all the other things we have conversations about, but we generally never have that conversation. So just taking a moment for yourself to think about that, actually articulate in your head, what do I want somebody to know or not know or do or don't do? And then that'll be helpful when you're communicating with your support group of how they can actually help you.
When I first started living with the roommate I live with now, when my alarms would go off, she would always say something like, "Are you dying?" And I was like, that had to be stopped immediately. I was like, I'm done. That's not funny. That's not helpful. I'm putting a moratorium on that. If I would like your assistance, I will tell you. And if you hear the alarms more than 3 times and I have not acknowledged them, I welcome you to let me know that they're going off. And that was like a really good boundary we set at the beginning. And now she's like a huge support for me, very non-judgmental. But if it's going off in the middle of the night and I'm not hearing it, she'll just knock on my door and be like, "Yo, get it." I'm like, "You got it."
So if you're on a first date and you haven't brought up diabetes yet, when is the right time? What does that look like on a first date?
I can answer this one. Especially before I was able to bolus from my phone, I feel like when you are on a dinner date especially, there's kind of no way around it. They're going to see you pulling out something. There's some kind of curiosity there. So I kind of let that be a natural moment to just be like, "Hey, by the way, like I have type 1 diabetes," but I kind of have a rule for myself where I don't like to talk about diabetes on a first date for more than about 5 minutes, because for me, even if someone's very curious and it's coming from a really good place, I don't want to spend most of the time that we're supposed to be getting to know each other talking about the disease I live with every day. And so what I usually tell people is like, I appreciate your curiosity. That's a green flag for me. I would like for you to trust me to tell you the things that I'm ready for you to know when I'm ready for you to know them, but I will always answer questions if you have them. And I sort of just set it up in that way where it's like, I appreciate and recognize your curiosity, but I'd rather talk about some other stuff right now. And when there's something I need you to know, I will tell it to you.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add on is that, again, it's kind of case by case. So not only do I live with type 1 diabetes, but it's my work. It's just kind of everything I do. So when I'm just out with friends or other people that are feeling just me for the first time, sometimes, gosh, I just don't want to shut up about it because I'm so passionate about it. Other times, it's just the last thing I want to talk about. So and I think a lot of times we're asking these questions, we're almost assuming like it's this thing that we're going to release on this person and they're going to like run away in terror. Like it can be a positive, like for sure, and a way to like, to connect with somebody. So it's just the moment, it's the person, all these kinds of things. There's no right or wrong way to do it.